Okay, as always, this is Upside Down 6 and the Robo Producer, but this time we've got a new series, different from Second Strike. This time we are doing Bunker 1 v Bunker 2. Bunker 1 being me and Bunker 2 being Robo Producer, but now we're going to be doing the Character v Character series, which is going to be basically the T1000 v the Rev-9, the Grace v Carl Reese, the T800 v the T800, Protector and the Terminator, and yeah, so we'll chime in on that. Robo Producer is basically going to be my advocate, but also enemy at this time when it comes to the versus v versus. So he's going to be basically trying to convince you guys which is better, the T1000, and I'm going to be trying to convince you guys that the Rev-9 is the better villain. So, Robo Producer, you want to let them know who's there?
Yeah, right here in Bunker 2, San Diego, Robo Producer, obviously right next to Upside Down 6 as always, but got to challenge him, man. I mean, don't get me wrong, starting today off with Rev-9 versus the T1000. Yes, the Rev-9 is menacing. It is relentless. But I still think there are a couple of factors that make the T1000 the supreme unit.
Do you reckon it's the supreme unit in your head because time and nostalgia? Yet again, I can always throw that nostalgia card in, like a game of poker.
I won't. Let's put it this way. I will not deny that nostalgia is most likely a part of it. I don't think it's a huge part of it, but it definitely is a factor. I mean, T2, T1 still my favorite movie, but T2 in many ways did take it up a notch, and the T1000 is definitely a part of that.
And are you saying T1000's a better unit, as in a termination unit, or are you saying the T1000 is just a better idea?
I'm not going to say it's a better idea, because it's actually interesting you brought that up, because as a better idea, I actually think the Rev-9 is better, and I'll tell you why. Because it takes the best of both worlds. It takes the endoskeleton, which is just menacing all by itself. I mean, the thing is just unstoppable. Plus, it's got some upgrades. Then you throw in the liquid metal, which is the easiest way to describe it, over that. And that makes, I think that's just very creative from a filmmaking standpoint, from a character standpoint. As a better unit, I'm actually going with the T1000. Main reason, I will tell you why. Yes, it's experimental. It's also the reason why Skynet sent back one T1000. It was one of a kind. And yes, I think that gives it a slight advantage, because I also think it makes it a little bit more unpredictable. I don't even think Skynet knows exactly what it is going to do. It's got a goal, but the way that it's going to achieve that goal, I think, is a bit more nobody really knows. And I think it's a better infiltration unit, whereas the Rev-9, yes, it's an infiltrator, but it really just comes at you just like full force. The T1000, the T1000 more of like a spy. Like, it's kind of covert in the way it does things.
See, I saw the Rev-9 as more of it inhabited and inhibited and mimicked human behavior a lot more advancedly. You know what I mean? It could replicate humor. It could pretend and basically absorb the environment, and then basically tell you what you want to hear. You know what I mean? I'm very, very good at it. You know what I mean? It was very articulate in the way it did it. The T1000 was more restricted. It was more robotic. And yeah, we'll pretend that we're not stuck in the 1991 when it was made. So pretend it was made in the same time.
Yeah.
The advancement of the Rev-9 was just insanity. In that they did say, didn't they, that James Cameron and Tim Miller and that did say that we're going to create something that is going to, reproduce and also show that technology has moved on, which it has. So they wanted to bring it up to today's standards, and that's, where it comes, with the AI. That's how.
Sure.
artificially intelligent it was. It was insane. It was that great that it made me laugh, and I found it funny. I found it sinister, and its weaponry, the way it could use its liquid metal and separate.
That was insane.
That was so dangerous, and the way it was. The stupid guards at the border. Why hug a machine when you can shoot it, or hug anyone while you can shoot it? I don't know.
Exactly.
You can. That's a plot hole in it, but it's stabbing everywhere, left, right, and centre. It gets thrown by the T-800 in the end scene, and it just lands like a pile of. It lands like a sack of spuds. It's so limp, but then it reaffirms itself after it's been limp. You know what I mean? There's no solidness to it like a T-800 would be. A T-800 would break from such a fall. You know what I mean? It makes itself nimble. That's the word.
Do you get what I'm saying, though? It seems like, and don't get me wrong, it's not a weakness of the Rev-9. It seems like the Rev-9 is more in your face, which is fine. I think from a strategic, from a espionage standpoint, and I love all that type of stuff, I think that the T-1000 has the upper hand. I think it's a little bit slower, but I think it's a little bit more methodical. And again,
I can agree.
Good. And I would love to hear your thoughts on, again, the experimentalness of it. I think that we haven't really seen a lot of the T-1000 other than obviously just, in T2. But I think it being one of a kind gives it that unpredictability.
I agree. Like I say, the strategic unpredictability of it, with Skynet fearing it, so it only created one because Skynet was in itself quite a paranoid thing because it was sentient and conscious.
Sure.
But this is where I think Legion's Rev-9 was more advanced in that it trusted its own technology to do its doing whilst being so self-aware. The deadliness of it, just unreal. I just think, and as much as this is what I mean, it's like I love the T-1000 and I hate arguing with you about it because I also, everything you're saying I'm agreeing with, but I still think they outdid the T-1000. I rarely think they did. And I think time obviously has played an advantage.
Big time. It would be interesting. It's something that we're never going to know, Six. It would be interesting to see if they made T2 today, if they flat out remade it today, exactly what they would make the T-1000 look like. If they would keep it the same, or if they would kind of tweak it and make it seem more advanced. We'll never see that, but I think it's an interesting thing to think about.
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Instead of sending these skeletal T-800s out with the 40-watt range plasma rifles and all stuff like that, you've got the Rev-7s, which are in the future war, which obviously build up to the Rev-9s, and obviously there would have been Rev-1s upwards with stabby weapons, instead of wasting time on arming up weapons, because the Legion decided, I'm going to mass bulk these horrific Rev units with stabby weapons and just go and hoard out like locusts and stab the living hell out of humanity instead of these machines.
It's interesting because you hear people say, and I don't buy it, well, Dark Fate was such a horrible movie. It didn't, it just rehashed everything from, all the different Terminator movies. And you bring up a good point. No, it didn't, because instead of creating a nuclear holocaust future war with, T-800s walking around with machine guns, it wasn't like that. They starved the population, and then they mass produce these Rev units with these stabbing weapons, and it goes down in a whole different ball of wax when it comes to the future war. So I don't buy that at all.
So that's where you agree where the Rev-9 is cool as fuck.
No, it's definitely cool. I will not disagree with you that it's not cool. It is.
That's where we're stuck in. Both bunkers are stuck each end, where it's like, oh god, because I love the T-1000 so much, and I love the Rev-9 so much, and you're in the same boat.
Oh, totally.
I think both bunkers are agreeing with each other as much as we're trying to argue about it.
Oh, sure. And I know we're wrapping up here, but to just agree with your point, it's like I walked into Dark Fate not knowing, like, that was one of my main points. Is the Rev unit going to be just as cool or cooler than the T1000? I walked out with two thoughts. One, I still like the T1000 better, but two, the Rev-9 exceeded my expectations on how badass I thought it was going to be. It really is on a different level from the T1000, just an excellent, just terrorizing unit. I mean, this thing is not stoppable.
I mean, people have been convinced by other people, or people are trying to convince other people, well, it's just the same as the TX. No, it's far from it. It's a different dimension from the TX. And two, if there was any natural progression machine-wise, whether Skynet be Skynet or Legion be Legion, if there was any natural progression of a new moving forward weapon, the Rev-9 would be that weapon. And it felt so right that it was great. I loved it. I didn't feel like they were trying too hard. I felt like they've done what it didn't feel too forced. It felt like, that's the right thing they should have made.
Well, yeah, because again, and I loved in the movie, they talk about how, Skynet's been defeated, but humanity never learns. So they basically create a second Skynet, but it's a little different. It's not the same. It works. It thinks differently. And you can see that in its creation of the Rev-9.
Yeah, the advances in technology, and that's going to be an advance in AI, the advance in the technology, the advance in materials that are used. It's all an advancement in humanity, and that's how it's going to be. And some people might not accept it, but I promise the Rev-9 is one of the glamour points of Dark Fate. Definitely.
Oh, for sure. Agreed.
Yeah, definitely. But I can't hate the T1000 either.
And that's why I think it would be actually a great way to wrap up, because we both obviously are sticking to our guns, so to speak. Excuse me for the pun there. But I'm going to give you what my favorite part of the Rev-9 is, and then I want you to give me your favorite part of the T1000. For me, the Rev-9 is the fact that it is so relentless. I mean, when you think you've got it down and you have a strategy against it, it pulls a bag of tricks, out of nowhere, and it's right back up ready to go. I think from that perspective, from being unstoppable and more in your face, that's where the Rev-9 excels from the T1000. But now I want to hear why you like the T1000 so much.
I like the T1000 because I was 11 when I watched it, and it was so unexpected. I'd never ever seen anything so cool in my entire life. That at that age it implants in your brain. And like on Dark Fate, where the people are just seeing Sarah Connor blow up the Rev-9 and it lands on the car and the people are in shock and awe, like, what on earth? The Rev-9 doesn't bother with anyone. It walks straight past them and carries on with its mission. That shock, but it'd live with them for the rest of their life because it was that advanced. That's how I've always been. I've always just been in awe of how cool that design was. And imagine if we'd have got that in '84, because that was when apparently Jim Cameron reckoned he'd already created that idea, but technology had not moved forward to film it.
Again, it comes back to, if they made T2 today, I think you'd get a little bit different version of the T1000. It might be a little bit, more off the wall like the Rev-9. Again, we'll never know. My final point I'm going to make on the T1000 is